All right. So I am going to start mise en placing for my mirepoix for our chicken noodle soup, and then I will cut up the chicken. All right, so I'm going to do it a little bit backwards. But it's because I don't want to wash my cutting board. So I'm going to do all of my raw first, set it aside. We do all my my veggies first, set it aside, and then I will do my raw meat, which is the chicken. So we are aiming for a medium dice here on all of our cuts. All right, make sure to peel. Okay. All right, so this one's a pretty large carrot, so I'm going to cut this in half and then just work on each half. Again, we are aiming for a medium dice. For a soup like this, I'm okay if they're not perfectly square, although they should be uniform in size. All right, and I want to utilize all of my carrot here. So although the top half is not a perfect square, you could see it's kind of an off like triangle. It is the same size as that square piece. So utilize all of your carrot, but just make sure that they are uniform so that way they cook evenly. Slipped a little bit there. I'm going to utilize all of this carrot here. Anytime I make soup, I always put extra carrots in it because my daughter loves carrots. Right. Again, I like to work in sections, so I will break it up just so it's easier to handle. So medium dice here on celery as well. It's chicken noodle soup, so I like to be able to see, you know, all of our veggies. They should stand out. You know, of course, the main important part is the chicken and the noodle, but I like the color of those veggies. You know, the chicken is a tan color, the noodles is a tan color. So you get that pop of color from the bright orange of the carrots and then a little bit of green from our celery. And then, of course, we'll add some herbs into it too, so you get a little bit more of that color. All right, so you guys remember our ratio of mirepoix? You can unmute yourselves if you know the answer. It's 50% onion, 25 carrot, and 25 celery. Right. So again, aiming for a medium dice on our onions as well. So I'm going to have a little bit more spacing as I'm cutting through. Okay. Work your way around that onion so you don't end up with any odd pieces. Okay. Your pot is ready. I know I had one straggler onion over there. There it is. Okay. So I'm going to put all of this in my bowl. All right. I'm going to do my herbs real quick. So you can finely chop these thyme leaves, which I'll probably go through it a couple times, but I want them to kind of stand out in the soup, so I'm not going to finely dice. Ooh, my onion is potent. It's making me tear up. It's a good thing you guys can't see my face. You'd be like, why are you so sad? I'm sorry, I didn't realize the camera had moved. One of the other students pointed out that as I'm cutting, I tend to wiggle the table, which wiggles the camera, so sorry. So when you're peeling your thyme leaves, you have your stem here, and then if you just pull it up, then you'll get all of those leaves off. I'm sorry, let's get this camera to refocus. There we go. All right, so just pull those leaves. There we are. Whew, that onion is strong. I didn't feel it till the end too. So I'm just going to run my knife through the thyme a few times. You don't want any of the real woodsy part of the thyme. It doesn't break down, or it doesn't soften either. So don't have any of the real woodsy parts, just those leaves. Right. I'm just getting a small plate here to set my leaves on. Okay. And I'm going to do my chives real quick. The chives here are going to add in at the end here. So they have them folded here, so I'm just going to unfold them and cut them in half, line them all up, and then I'm just going to line it up. These ones I'm not going to do on a bias. I'm just going to have nice small pieces. I want you to get a little bit of bites of everything when we eat the soup. All right. And then next to my herbs, my other herbs here, drop those chives there. All right. So now I'm ready to move on. I'm going to wipe up my table here for a second. And then wipe up my table, and then I'm going to start on our cutting up our chicken here. 2 chicken breasts here that we are working with. And we're, again, going to aim for about a medium dice. It's okay if they're a little bit larger than a medium. Not quite a large dice, but if they're a little bit larger than medium, that's okay, because as proteins cook, they lose some of their water, which results in the proteins shrinking. So they will shrink in size. All right, so just remember that when you're cutting up your chicken. So you can see I am aiming for a little bit larger of a cut. This is a little bit larger than a medium, but not quite a large. Okay. So when it cooks, they're still gonna get some good, decent bites of chicken. Okay. I'm gonna wash my hands real quick, and then we are ready to start cooking that chicken. All right, so I've had my pan preheating here. It's nice and hot. I'm going to add my oil in. And I just realized too, I forgot to grab the most important ingredients. I forgot to grab my salt and pepper. Let me get that real quick. All right, always salt and pepper. Never forget salt and pepper. Okay, so I'm gonna start with the chicken. So I'm gonna add the oil. I'm gonna add a generous amount. I don't want my chicken to stick. Okay. Make sure it has, yeah, it's nice and hot. All right, so I'm gonna scrape in the chicken. And salt and pepper. All right, instead of just laying it out in a single layer. The key to cooking chicken is to really let the chicken do its thing. If I were to try to move it around right now, it's really going to stick to the bottom of my pan. Chicken will come up when it's ready. So whether you are searing it or grilling it, if you try to pull it up or move it, it's going to stick to whatever surface it is. When the chicken is ready, it will come up nice and clean, so you won't have to do a whole lot of work. So for example here, yeah, see me that piece just came up. If I were to see if I have any pieces. Yeah, like right here, if I were to try, and it would stick. And then you're gonna end up tearing up your chicken. So really just let it speak to you, let it do its thing. There's no need to, really have to worry about it. If your pan is too hot, just turn it down, right? So my pieces, I know my pan is already nice and hot, which is also key. And I have a good generous amount of oil in there as well. So good key essential. See right here, see how it's sticking? If I were to try and move that, see how it's poured? I don't know if you can see that. It's poured right there. Right? So if it's not moving, just let it sit. Right? As long as it's not burning, you're fine. Right? So I'm gonna let that kind of press, do its thing. My center side has now been. All right, and I just grabbed a bowl here, so when my chicken is done, I'm going to set it aside. So what we're doing here is we're just developing our color of our chicken. Want some nice golden brown on there. This is what's going to help give it a little bit of that color as well. If you were to just add this directly into our soup, it will cook, but you're not going to have any color. All right, so develop that color first. Right. You see that nice, beautiful piece there? That color, that's what we want. All right. Well, my chicken, it's okay if it's slightly under, because when we are dealing with protein, they will continue to cook even after they have been pulled off the heat. All right, so I do want to reserve the fat that's in there and what juice does come out of that. So I did have a little bit, you can see that down in there. I want to keep that's flavor in there. And I'm going to leave my chicken aside here. So I'm going to add a little bit more oil. And I want to do this all in the same pan because this is all flavor down here. We don't want to lose that. All right. And then some of that juice that just extracted from that chicken. That's all flavor. That's good stuff. All right. So turn my heat back on. Like I said, I'm going to set aside my chicken. And I'm going to add my mirepoix in there now. Right into that. Salt. Pepper. All right, we're just gonna let this cook for several minutes, sauteing that up. All right. So my mirepoix is nice and softened. Onions are looking translucent. So at this point, I'm actually gonna deglaze with a little bit of white wine. If you guys do not have this pan, that's okay. This is just going to help develop a little bit more flavor. So when we're deglazing, we are picking up any of the bits that are stuck on the bottom, and it's going to help pick it up, and it's going to help develop some flavor. Like I said, if you don't have any white wine on hand, that's okay. This is just an added step for some added flavor in there. All right, so when we deglaze, not only are we picking up everything that's on the bottom, but we're also going to reduce that wine as well. So if we were to just continue on with the cooking process right now, you're really going to be able to taste a lot of that wine flavor. And although we do want to taste it, we shouldn't be able to taste the fact, like we shouldn't be able to taste a glass of wine, right? So we do want to reduce it just a little bit, leaving some of that in there. And it reduces pretty quickly, so it's actually good. So at this point, I'm actually going to add in our chicken stock. Add in our chicken stock in there. We are going to add more salt. Okay. That salt is going to help bring it up to a boil faster, and it's also going to add flavor. All right. So at this point, I could turn my heat all the way up on high because I am trying to bring this to a boil. All right. And I think I might add just a little bit more stock. I added one full container. I think I'm going to add probably about half, so about 1.5. we want to have enough stock that when we add in our noodles, the noodles are going to absorb some of that stock and it's going to help thicken it as well. So I want enough to be able to boil our noodles. And I also want enough that is going to still be there by the time our soup is completed. Because like I said, those noodles, when we add them in, they are going to absorb some of it. All right, so I did about 1.5 in there. All right, and because I added some more stock in there, I'm also going to add more salt. More salt. And some pepper too. All right. So I'm just going to bring that to a boil. All right, while that is coming to the boil, always want to utilize your time. So I'm actually going to clean up my mess, my mirepoix, all of that, get it out of the way. As I stated, I never just stand, I never just watch. What can I do to stay busy? Maybe it's reorganizing, maybe it's getting things out of the way. Maybe it's cooking if I have something else that I need to prep. All right, they say never watch a pot boil or never watch water boil because it won't happen. All right, just wiping up, cleaning up my burners here. Okay. All right. So my soup has come to a boil. I have let my mirepoix soften. So I'm going to go ahead and add in my noodles. Now, if we were making this to be served later on or for service in a restaurant, we would actually be cooking the noodles separately because, like I said, the noodles will absorb moisture. So if we were to be serving this later on, then we are definitely going to cook those noodles separately. But because we are going to eat them, we are going to cook our noodles right in there. By cooking them in there, it's going to absorb a lot of that flavor. All right, so I did, of course, because we added a new ingredient in there, I added more salt, and I'm now adding in that thyme. All right, we're going to bring it back to a boil, and we're going to time it for about 4 to 5 minutes. And then we are going to add back in our chicken, and then lastly, our chives. I'll probably save a few of the chives for garnish when I plate it up. Oh, it smells so good. All right, so we're going to time this about 4 minutes. So I'm actually setting a timer right now. All right. I'm just making sure that nothing is sticking to the bottom. We aren't working with a large amount of liquid here like we would if we were just boiling just plain pasta, maybe for like a spaghetti. There are other components in here that mirepoix, so I just want to make sure that the noodles aren't sticking. If you just make sure that it was a rapid boil before you add in those noodles and you give it a stir as soon as you put it in, then you should be good. Okay. I'm actually going to test our broth here. So it does need considerable amount of salt there. All right, so we timed it so our mirepoix here had cooked for about 5 minutes. They had started to slightly soften. They still had a little bit of a bite to them, but because we were going to continue cooking them with the noodles, I wanted to time it accordingly so we didn't have soft veggies and then perfectly cooked pasta. I wanted everything to be perfectly cooked all at the same time. Okay. I feel like today's a good day for soup too. It's not too cold, not too hot. All right. There's my timer. All right. So now I'm going to add in that chicken that I had reserved, and there's some added juices in there, which is just going to add some flavor. You want to add all that back in there. See those juices come out? All that is flavor. So we're going to bring it back to a boil. I'm going to add in about 1/3 of my chives. All right. Bring that chicken back up to temperature. Make sure that it's cooked all the way through. And you see that you have those nice chunks of carrots. You get those big noodles. Get those nice chunks of chicken. That's what we want. They should all stand out uniformly like this. All right, so we're gonna bring that back up to a boil. And then I'm gonna go ahead and plate. Actually, I'm gonna go grab some tasting spoons before I get excited and plate it up. Grab my ladle here. Make sure you taste your broth. Make sure it's nicely seasoned. It just needs a little bit more salt. All right, and there we are. Let me give it another taste. A little bit more. And then we are good. And you can see how thick it got to with, once we added in those noodles. So it did thicken up, not just it thickened up and absorbed some of that stock, but it added some velocity to our soup. All right. So now we're going to ladle it up. Make sure we get some broth in there. And then we're going to top it off with some fresh chives for some color. All right, there you are. Beautiful ball of chicken noodle.